Hello, and welcome to the Under Budget Outdoors podcast, a podcast for new, intermediate, and seasoned hunters across the world. A podcast about experience, gear, knowledge, and more. Whether you hunt with a bow, crossbow, rifle, or shotgun, you can hunt properly and efficiently while being under budget. Just remember, it doesn't take big bucks to kill big bucks. Let's get right into it. Welcome back, everybody, to Under Budget Outdoors. This is episode 2. I'm joined by Brock today. Unfortunately, Nate is working late, so we're just kind of going to roll with this episode here. Today we're going over primarily stand locations and all the to-dos about that. We might dabble into some other stuff in a little bit here, but believe it or not, there's a lot to do with stand location. It's not as easy as just going out into the woods with a new tree stand or with a climber or whatever and just putting it in a tree and being like, all right, that's where I'm staying the entire year. Even though we wish it was that easy, it's
definitely would be nice.
It's definitely not. So, Brock, if you want, you can start on the first topic. We have not one stand, but multiple.
Yeah, so basically that's that kind of goes into helping yourself out, try to set yourself up for success more. So even if you're only hunting, say it's a 20-acre plot, make sure that you have more than one place to go to. Hunting pressure is going to take a lot of like the mature bucks, the mature does, if that's what you're going after, whatever the case, that hunting pressure is going to toss them off. So if you keep going back to the same spot day after day, week after week, you're going to throw off your chances of trying to get anything. So, if you have something small or even something large, try to have 2-3 locations that you can go to. And also with that, you can also play the wind a little bit. If the wind direction is going north, don't hunt the stand that's going to be set up for a south wind. Try to use every case that you can to your advantage, so that way you're not just relying on the typical one spot and that's it.
Right. Yeah, I know when I first started, I set up that one stand and hope and prayed, but there was definitely a lot of variables that I didn't know because I'm going to go out hunting and I know everything about it because I watched a video one time on YouTube.
Yeah, well, you're going to have people that are like, oh, this is the stand that I hunt every year. And I've had that before. The property that I started hunting on when I was a kid, we had a ground blind set up. I can legit park 25 yards behind it. And within 15 minutes of daylight, we had 2 deer shot.
Right.
And that was every single time we sat there. But you're not going to get that every single stand location that you have, every property that you have.
For sure.
We got lucky that property just produced a lot of deer for us. It wasn't many bucks. It was mainly does. But me and my family were more about meat hunting than we are about buck hunting. So it was perfect for us. But If you're going after, if you're trying to go out and get a booner every year, you got to change things up a little bit and you got to work around and try to find where those locations are going to be. And don't just rely on that one spot.
Sure. Yeah, I wish I had that knowledge when I went out, because I had that hang-on stand that we talked about in episode 1, and I had that ladder stand. And if I knew that, I would have set up a little bit further away from where we had originally set up on that property.
And even there, you could have had to hang on at one spot and a ladder stand in the other, and be able to go with both of them.
Had I I guess I could say, had the knowledge at the time, it could have been a different outcome on some of those hunts. But
yeah, you still got lucky. You got that nice 6-point and everything. It still worked out for you, but always could have been better. There's always room for improvement,
Absolutely. So we kind of came up with a list of do's and don'ts and what to really look for when you're talking about stand placement. A big thing, like Brock said, is not hunting the same tree every time. Get a couple of different stands. If you can't afford a couple of different stands, hunt on the ground. It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, and that plays a lot. Like I was saying in the first episode about how I've kind of gotten into more of like a mobile setup.
Right.
I have the freedom to, if I get to my spot or I get to the farm and just, hey, this wind is really kicking up, or it doesn't really feel like it's going to be on today. I have the freedom to move wherever I want. If
Right.
you're hunting a solid location like a ladder stand or something like that, it's you're obviously not going to be moving that thing every single time you go out. But
yeah, for sure.
Try to get 2 or 3. Look on Marketplace, look for a cheap one or something like that, or get into a mobile setup, and you have the freedom to move around a little bit.
Right. Yeah, I mean, if you're not afraid of heights and you can understand how a tree climber works, it's not a bad investment if you're down for that. I'm not personally a big fan of them, primarily because the one that I used, I wasn't given instructions on. Luckily, I was only about 5 feet in the air when the base fell, so I didn't really have far to go, but not crazy about them. But
and that's one of the big reasons why safety harnesses has become a big thing lately.
What's a safety harness?
Exactly.
Learn about safety. There's too many people that fall out of, I can't say the word. Too many people fall out of tree stands. It's terrible. It really is terrible. So this actually kind of brings us into the next topic of stand locations. Make sure the tree that you want to set up in is alive and that there's no hazards nearby. Number one, okay, again, the tree is alive. Make sure you're not setting up on a dead limb or a dead, like if the tree has a Y, make sure where you're setting up that tree is green. It might seem like, oh, yeah, it's dead, but it's holding up all of this. Like, it'll hold me. You never know. A big gust of wind might take that down. There's a million factors. But the reason that I say check nearby hazards is because you might get up into this area where you think, is going to be a perfect spot. And then you notice, hey, there's this giant dead limb from either my tree or the next tree that's hanging right above me. You don't want to be there either for the same reason. Wind, rain, snow, all of that can change the weight of the tree, and you're putting yourself right in a death trap.
Well, and even there, if you're doing a permanent setup like a ladder stand, all right, hey, we got a storm coming through. I'm not going to go out and hunt today, but you got to go out the next day and the tree came down and your stand's not there anymore.
Right.
I've seen a lot of stuff posted online of, guys just having trees racked up because the tree came down next to it and took out the tree that it was in.
Yeah. It's, sorry, I'm just answering a text. I apologize.
No, it's all good. But also, not just the dead trees. That's not the only thing to worry about. You also got to pay attention. Is there poison sumac or poison ivy, something like that around you? You don't want to be getting tied up in that kind of stuff, especially if you're going to be like what I'm doing ground sits, or if you're going to set up a ground blind somewhere. Clear out the entire area, all leaves, everything, and then set that blind up.
Right.
So that way, thing is going to be in there while you're in there, and pay attention to where you're walking in and where you're walking out, that you're not walking through that kind of stuff.
So I was going to touch on a little bit of actually the three of our background. We're all from the same fire department out in Jersey. I guess I should say we all started on the same fire department out in Jersey. We hear it every year about hunters falling out of tree stands or trees falling over that hunters are in. It happens. So that's why we stress on checking for hazards, making sure your ladder stand's properly set up. I know it's a guy thing to be like, I don't need no directions. I know how to do it. Just do it. Make sure you have extra ratchet straps, more, if you're setting up a ladder stand, more than they even recommend. They only normally give you 1 or 2. Go buy a box from Home Depot. They're 4 for $10. Ratchet strap the hell out of it. Just make sure you don't have metal on metal jingling and jangling. But
and with the ladder stands, they typically come with 1 or 2, and it's like 2-inch ratchet strap.
They're useless.
You know, it's not very big.
There's no shame in safety, and I say that I work in the construction industry, primarily in concrete. I'm a maintenance guy for my concrete company, and we have a big safety team that drills this stuff into us, and it's easy to see hazards. You just have to pay attention. And if you take that extra 5 to 10 minutes to put an extra ratchet strap on, put your harness on, put an eye hook in the tree right, next to where you are going to be sitting, tie off to it.
Yeah, and even there,
it's not
hard. Check your straps every time you go out. They're out there in the weather. If you have a permanent stand, they're out there in all types of weather. The sun is beating on it, the rain's beating on it, the snow, the ice, everything. It's getting rusted out, whatever. Make sure that you're constantly checking that stuff every time you go out.
And I hate to say it, but there's people out there that don't want you there. Like in the case that we talked about last week where Brock's tree stand was cut down. You never know. You might start, it might be 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, and you're getting out there and you're like, I'm going to get up in the tree stand early. Take that flashlight and just make sure that your straps are on, make sure they're tight. You don't want to get 3/4 of the way up and your ladder shifts out and you start heading back towards the ground. I know it's, you don't want to use the flashlight. You're not trying to make as much noise. That deer will eventually come back if you spook it. Take the 10 seconds, check your safety. You don't want to be another statistic out there where you can't find your phone, you broke your arm, you can't reach your phone, and now you have to crawl back out of the woods. It happens. It's scary. And always, always think of safety. I know it's stupid, and I know it's childish, but it's not.
Well, and a lot of time, you're out in the woods. Who knows where you are?
Right.
Who knows where that stand location is?
Another excellent point. Doesn't matter who. Send a text to a friend. Send a ping if you can. Let them know where you are before going out.
One of the best things to do, especially if you have buddies that are going out with you, whatever. Drop a pin on onX. You can share that pin with other people.
Yep.
That's one of the best ways, and you can even GPS track through the onX app and everything. At least as long as one person other than you knows where you're at. If you are hunting, in the afternoon, and then, hey, you're not home at 10 o'clock at night, you're not answering your phone, the wife is starting to get worried, whatever the case, she can reach out to whoever knows where your location is or something.
Always
to come check on you or whatever.
Know. And don't ever say, my normal spot. Because if you have multiple stands, your normal spot might be 500 yards away.
And they might think that your normal spot is something different than where you hunted today.
Yep. So I know we kind of went off topic there, but safety is a huge thing. So like we said, make sure the tree's alive. Make sure there's no hazards. Make sure you're texting a friend or dropping a pin. Something. Just let people know where you're at. It could be life-saving. So always remember that. But anyway, okay. So now you have the ideal tree. Okay. You got your ladder stand set up. You got your hanger set up, whatever you want to call it. Brock, how are you going to get there?
That's going to really depend on the day. No matter how many stands you have set up, you always want to try to have at least 2 ways to get in and get out of that stand. So like perfect example, you've been to the farm that I hunt on.
Yeah.
I could park at the house and park right next to the outbuilding that's right there. And I have 2 different directions that I can head to get to any stand location. I can also drive around the corner about half mile up the road and park in the back field. And I can walk in different ways that way. So pay attention, the night before or the week before, so if you're like me, you're a weekend warrior and you can really only hunt on the weekends because of work. All week long, check, Weather Channel app or whatever the case, see where that wind direction is going to be, see how bad the wind's going to be, see just kind of get like an idea of what you have, and then take a note of, okay, if the wind is this direction, I can come in from this side, and I'm not going to blow that stand out. Make sure that when you're in that stand, deer aren't walking in the same way that you're walking in. They're going to get your scent before they come to you, and you're not going to have a shot opportunity. Absolutely. Because especially if you're archery hunting, you're not going to have a deer shot at 100 yards. You're going to have that thing coming in closer. So you need to make sure that you're not leaving your scent all over the woods tramping around. You want to get in, and a really easy way to do it, especially if you have public land, you can't really do it. Especially if you have private land, you can't really do it on public. Is clear everything out. Get a weed whacker, get whatever the case, a lawnmower if you have to, a machete, whatever. Clear a path to your stand and out of your stand. So that way, when you're walking in, you can stay quiet. You can, not really raise too much awareness that you're there going in, and then also playing to win at the same time, and try to make yourself more successful that way.
Right. Great points. Yeah. Yet another thing that I did not do when I first started. I didn't put like the pink tape out on the tree branches or anything, but I always went the exact same way because I knew there was a tree down that I had to hop over at one point. And then I always just took that same route so I could do it in the middle of the night, not thinking about it. I didn't know.
Well, and also with that spot, like I'm assuming you're referring to Hagedorn, right?
Correct.
So with Hagedorn, that was a hard place to access because we didn't have anywhere to park.
Right.
We got lucky enough that we knew the guy working at that business, and we can park there and then walk up across the tracks.
Yep.
But if you went to go park, a mile up the road, now you got to walk a mile all the way down to your stand.
You have no idea.
It had, because of that big old cliff there, you weren't climbing up that cliff to get to your stand.
Nope.
And
not even when I was in fit condition was I climbing up that cliff.
Right. And where, like we mentioned, that everyone was hunting on the other side of that property, over closer to where the old hospital used to be, you would have to come all the way down across those woods, and then you're blowing everybody else spot up because it's public land. You're trying to be respectful of everyone else. You're blowing them out the whole time that you're walking down through there.
Absolutely. So another thing that we wanted to bring up is kind of backtracking a little bit. When you are trying to find that perfect tree, what are some things that you don't want to see? What are some things that you need to look for to maybe think about moving your stand or putting your stand somewhere else?
So my biggest thing on this, if you're going to be doing it elevated, if you're hang on stand, ladder stand, climber, saddle hunting, whatever the case, don't be so worried about what the ground cover is like. You need to worry about what the cover is above you. Because if you're going to be elevated, you're going to be 10, 15, 20 feet in the air. The deer are going to be at ground level. So if you're moving around and you're trying to get your bow set, you're swinging around the tree to try to get that proper shot placement, that deer is going to notice your movement and they're going to be looking up. If you have decent cover above you, then it'll be a little bit harder for that deer to spot you out. And because one of the things that you really have to think about, and this is something that I never thought about myself until about 4 years ago when I joined the trees and field staff. Somebody brought this up to me, and it stuck with me ever since this person said this. You don't have to worry about so much of what you're seeing. You have to look at it through the animal's eyes. Whether you're deer hunting, you're turkey hunting, whatever the case, you need to worry about what that deer is seeing, because their vision is different than our vision.
Sure.
So the biggest thing that they're going to be doing, so like everyone says, oh, you're wearing blaze orange when you're shotgun or rifle hunting, the deer is going to spot you. Well, no, they're not, because the deer doesn't see that color, which is why we wear orange, because we can see it. The biggest thing that the deer is going to do, the turkey is going to do, is spot your silhouette first. So if you wear good camo, and you have that cover above you, it's going to break up that silhouette, and it's going to make it a lot harder for you to be detected in the woods. Absolutely. if you're doing ground hunting, then yes, you want to worry about the cover, the natural cover around you, and don't bring a pallet into the woods and just sit behind that. Try to use some of the natural stuff around you, or if you're on public land, find a decent spot where you have a spot where there's say like some bushes or shrubs or something around you that you can sit behind, that's not going to hinder your shooting ability, but it's still going to give you that natural cover, and it's going to help break up your silhouette and hide you a little bit.
Yep.
So you have that opportunity to, deer's walking in, grab your bow, or if you're set up for a shot to the right, but the deer's coming in from the left, you need to swing around a little bit. You want to try to hide that a little bit.
Right.
Do the best you can.
Yeah, I mean, you covered that pretty well. So what I do there. Anyway, terrible dad jokes. I'm horrible at
Okay, moving on.
Yeah, let's forget that ever happened. So, a topic I wanted to bring up, and it was something that I've learned from just a bit of experience and listening. Like we said the other day, you need to listen to experienced hunters. You might be walking through the woods and been like, oh, there's a perfect scrape. That's a perfect scrape. Or, oh, look, there's tracks right here. That's great. Or you might see some bedding. You don't want to put your stand right there. That's their area. Give them that space. You can follow their path, but stay 20 yards off of it, because if you're right on top of their path, they're going to smell that. And if you're right on top of that path, that means you're walking on their path, which you kind of also don't want to do. They'll smell that. They'll be able to smell the scent from your boots. They'll be able to smell you, especially if you don't shower.
Big thing, shower.
Wear something also, no scent, whatever, whatever option you want. Most of them all work. Clean your clothes. Anyway, don't set up right on their areas. I mean, it's great knowledge to know where they are. And like I said, you can follow their paths, but like I know the tree stand that I currently have up in mid-northern central Pennsylvania, whatever the hell you want to call that.
Try to find that on a map.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard finding that place on a map if you have the address. But anyway, mine's set up about 30 yards off of their path, and I mean, they walk left to right in front of me. I'm also like 25 feet off the ground, which kind of sucks, but they walk 30 yards right in front of me. That's not bad. I've seen them do it right in front of me.
And that's how you want to do it. If you, because like we have a spot on the farm. I think I actually when we were tracking that buck the one time that we had talked about not too long ago, that one guy that came in,
right,
and supposedly shot that buck that we tracked
100 yards, and the rack was this big, biggest rack I've ever seen, and 15 of us wasted our entire Sunday tracking nothing.
Yeah, we tracked that thing for like 20 hours total, probably.
It was ridiculous.
But that down in that area where we were tracking that, there's a section that we pretty much refer to as like the superhighway. Because when you go through there, there is no leaves, there's no ground plants, shrubs, nothing. It is just solid muck of where the deer are coming through. Like you walk through there and it's like a 5-foot wide section of just nothing but deer tracks. I'm not going to set up on a tree that's right on that.
Right.
I'm going to set up something to where I can see that, but still have the cover that I need. And, so if I'm trying to do archery, set up within 20, 30, or, whatever a comfortable shot is that you have, set up within that distance. Don't set up 5 feet from it.
Right.
Because even there, even if you do everything right and they don't smell you, when they start walking through, they're literally going to be on top of you, and good luck trying to draw your bow back and not spook them out.
For sure. Yeah, it's a big to do. Like I said, stay away from their area. It's excellent knowledge to know where they are, to know where they stay, to know where their scrapes are, but don't put your tree 5 feet from a scrape. You're just gonna lose that. But So once you set up your stand, you have it all set up. A key thing that Brock wanted to bring up is shooting lanes. And I know like when Brock and I went to Georgia, I got up in the first stand that they had me in, and I couldn't see anything. It was 5 o'clock in the morning. Sun wasn't up. I wasn't about to take my flashlight and look all around. But as soon as I could see the general area, I got up and I did full drawback just to see, you know, if I was going to hit any of the cover that was around me, because I had pretty thick cover on my left side. Almost to the point where I had to like step to the edge of the ladder stand to look that way. To my
And actually,
right,
that's not to cut you off, but that's actually a really good point. When you get your stand set up, no matter, you know, if you have your cover above you or you're on the ground, whatever the case, even if you don't have your bow with you when you're setting it up, let's say you're setting your stand up in August, do some practice draws, just kind of like move yourself around,
right,
make sure that you're not hitting anything. And if you're in a ladder stand that has a shooting rail on it,
yeah,
make sure that you know where you have to stand, because you might not hit that until you let go. And then when your cams pop back out and those limbs pop out in your bow and it smacks that shooting rail, you're going to blow your bow up and it's going to be a problem. I didn't even think about bringing that up before.
Yep. That was the first, like I said, the first thing I did. I was able to see my shooting lanes. About 20 yards in front of me, I had a pine plantation. Off to my right, I had a long path. I couldn't even tell you how long it was. Even in daylight, it had so much cover, I couldn't even give you an estimate of how long it was. But off to the left, they had a feeder set up at about 35 yards. There was a nice opening. That was the area Brock was talking about. That guy shot the hog. One day I'll explain that whole story, but it ain't going to be today. Anyway. But, you know, make sure your shooting lanes are good to go. And when you're up there, like I said, pull back, full swing across. All right, I know I can't shoot here. Let me move over a little bit. Let me try here. Okay, this is a good spot. This is a good spot. And that brings us right into the next thing. If you have a rangefinder, awesome. If you don't have a rangefinder, not a problem.
Get one.
They're actually, rangefinder. You can. I don't want to say the 6-letter store that's online that everybody uses with the smiley face logo, but Amazon. You can find them for cheap. But again,
the rangefinder I have right now that I'm using is $15.
Yeah.
And it works.
Yes. Yeah. What did we do? Like 100 yards, and it was within 3 feet of the one that I bought for like $70.
Yeah, and even the other guy, the guys from Pennsylvania, I think the one guy was Terry.
Yep.
We, all of our rangefinders, we all spent.
No. I think was it Terry? No. It was the guy that was with Terry. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, all three of our rangefinders spanned out, I would say, probably like $200 in what we paid for them, and they were all within 5 to 6 yards of each other.
It wasn't
like it wasn't like mine was 20 yards off from everybody else or something.
Right. But again, under budget wise, if that's not in your budget, no big deal. Before you start hunting, and I stress before you start hunting, before the season starts, climb up in your stand and get a visual of certain areas, okay? I think this is 10 yards. Let me remember this tree. If you want, take a little pink tape, put it on that tree around a piece of bark or something, and walk from the base of your ladder stand to that marker, right? Everybody's boot size is around a foot, whatever, okay? 3 feet is a yard. Measure it out if you have to that way. It's not that terrible. Get an idea. I mean, a deer isn't, the vitals aren't this small, all right? I mean, that's how you want to group. But again, like, get a general idea. 30, 35 yards, all right. You know what I mean? Just take that time and check. Range it out so that way you know when you're up there in that stand and that deer comes out and you're like, oh, I remember I walked over this tree and that was 20 yards. Let me get my 20-yard pin. Let me put that in the zone and let it ride.
Yeah, absolutely. Because one of the biggest things, if that deer is walking in and that's when you decide to start ranging, you're just adding more movement to yourself and you're giving yourself a bigger opportunity to get busted out with that deer spotting you. If you do it all, if you be preemptive with it and you be proactive and you do it beforehand, and like you said, you can even, I've seen guys take a can of spray paint and just boom, 20 on this tree.
Yep.
Boom, 30 on this tree. Whatever the case, obviously don't spray paint the ground because the leaves are going to change, the wind's going to blow, whatever. But if you have something solid like that, if you're hunting in the timber, get a can of spray paint. Get a mark. You can go to Walmart and get that roll of like the fluorescent tape or whatever.
Yeah, the pink fluorescent.
But, use the mark on there. Get different colors of it. Use pink for 20, white for 30, or whatever. Just be proactive and get it all done before you get out in the woods and start hunting. So that way you, again, like I said, set yourself up for success.
Right. It's another one of those things that if you take the time, it'll pay off. It really will. And again, that was after I did my drawbacks in those the couple of stands that I was in down in Georgia. Pulled out the rangefinder and I'm looking. Okay, I know this is 20 yards. This is 30 yards. All right. I thought that was close, but it was actually 50 yards. So I'm going to try to stay away from that. But I have a good idea of what I'm looking at. Another big factor of setting up stands is your wind directions. What is the normal wind direction? Wind directions vary. You could have a storm coming up from the south. You could have a storm coming from the east, west, north, whatever. But you normally have a general wind direction. You want to touch on that, Brock?
Well, we actually touched on that a little bit in the first episode. Like we were saying down in Georgia, how like all of those stands are set up for a southward wind because that's the typical wind that they have in that area. And it, in a way, kind of screwed us and brings up another point that we can talk about of the sun. Every afternoon, that sun was blaring in our eyes. If, you're setting up your stand location and you're looking at an area, okay, I have this trail coming through. I can set up my stand here, but hey, there's a good tree on that side and that sun's going to be to my back.
Right.
So you don't have that sun blinding you when you're trying to draw back or you're trying to look through your scope on your rifle, your shotgun, whatever. It's just another added thing that's going to hurt you, adding in that extra sun glare.
Yep.
Try to, even if you can set up to where you have more of like an east-west direction to where the sun's going to be on one side of you in the morning, and then in the afternoon, if you're sitting there in the afternoon, the sun's going to be on the other side of you. It's not going to be, because even in the morning, you still have to worry about the sun coming up facing directly east. You're still going to blind yourself a little bit.
Absolutely. 1 second. So another thing that Brock brought up, and I honestly never really thought of, but it was an excellent point, and I don't know if a lot of people would think about it, but don't rely on history. Just because, hey, I shot a big 8-point here last year, this is going to be the spot again. That might not be true. It might be true. You might get lucky. Or let's just say a family member. I've been hunting this spot for 20 years. Every year I've gotten something. Yeah, okay. That might be true. But that also isn't a guarantee. It's not always going to happen. So just because it worked before doesn't mean it's going to work again. And that kind of ties into everything. Everything we've talked about so far. Don't rely on that tree that your granddad was hunting in 30 years ago. That tree might be shot. That tree might be rotted out. The tree next to it might be rotted out. Back to safety. Wind directions, like I said, you normally have a general wind direction, so that might not change. Maybe he didn't even think about wind directions. So you can't always rely on previous history. And that was an excellent point that Brock brought up right before we started recording. And
and one thing to really
it.
think about with that is, if you're like me and you're just going out to hunt for meat, it's one thing. But if you're going out there, I mean, I know that I say that I'm a meat hunter and I don't really care about the bucks as much. I mean, I do, but I don't that much. Every hunter, no matter what, they want to shoot a buck. You always want to shoot a buck. You always want to shoot that real nice wall hanger. But if that's what you're mainly after, the more mature those deer are, there's reasons that those deer are mature. They get smart. They will pick up on certain things. And if you're, it goes back to, like I was saying earlier about the multiple stand setups. If you're constantly going into that same spot, that deer is going to smarten up on that. There's been studies done. I believe the one was down in Mississippi. They collared 7 bucks. All 7 of those bucks were 5.5 or older. And they tracked those deer for a year. And then at the end of that year, they then allowed hunters to come in and they set up wherever they wanted. They can go in, they could scout, they can do whatever. They pick their stand locations, they go in and hunt. Within one time of those hunters going in and hunting, those deer immediately changed where they were going. They had their typical spots that they were in, they're hanging out, their typical travel lanes, bedding, whatever. All of that changed within 1 week of the season opening.
I'd love to read
like it was crazy. I mean, and so like even there, going back to like the whole granddad thing, a lot of things, like one of the biggest things that a lot of people don't want to hear and don't want to listen to is the old wives' tales. Don't rely on the wives' tales. A lot of people will tell you the moon phase affects deer. There's been multiple studies done that proves that to be wrong. The moon phases don't affect deer. They don't affect mature bucks. There's actually no such thing, and studies and science proves that deer are not nocturnal.
Right.
Just because you're not seeing that deer during the day or that deer is not on your camera during the day does not mean that deer is nocturnal.
Right.
It just means that it's not in the area that you're seeing during the day. It's in a different area. So you got to get out there, get boots on the ground, figure out where is this deer going? Where is the bedding at? That, it might be bedding off in this, 200 yards from where your stand is, and it has a food source close by. It's just going to get up, walk to that food source, come back. Those deer are going to get up during the day. It's going to be less during the day, especially when it's hot out, as we saw in Georgia.
Right.
But they're still going to get up and move during the day. There's no such thing as a nocturnal deer.
Yeah, and weather changes all of that as well.
Right, and a lot of new people that get in and they're listening to, the experienced hunters. A lot of the experienced hunters experienced, or, whatever, they've been taught this from their granddad or whatever the case. A lot of people don't want to hear the science behind debunking all of the things that they're saying.
Right.
So you kind of have to, one of the best things to do is look up the National Deer Association. They do these studies. They have these studies out there. You can read up on them. You can watch videos on them, the whole nine. And it talks about all this kind of stuff.
Right.
Don't just rely on one person. Find multiple sources, to back something up if you're trying to go after it.
Yeah. Great points. The last thing we really wanted to touch on is also not relying on food plots. And do you want to go deeper into that? 'Cause I'm all ears about that as well. I hear, if you put a food plot here, you set it stand up 30 yards back, it's great.
Well, and that kind of goes back to the same thing like I was saying about how deer are not nocturnal. There's no such thing as a nocturnal deer. You set up a food plot, yeah, the deer are going to come to it, but what if they come at night? those deer might not want to be there during the day. Or you might have a food plot where you have 30 does out there, but that buck is going to hang back. The mature bucks are always going to hang back, and they're going to be kind of scoping things out and seeing things before they make that entrance in. You're going to have bucks getting up during the day and coming to those food plots, but don't rely on it.
Right.
One of the things that I have started doing within the last couple of years is figuring out where those bucks are feeding at and setting back 200 yards from that. Follow that trail down, see where they're going. Don't walk on the actual trail, but kind of chase it down a little bit and see where those deer are coming from, and you can get an idea of where those deer are bedding. So maybe that buck is getting up out of its bed at, say, 3:30 in the afternoon, 4 o'clock. In the fall and the winter, the sun's going down at 5:30. It's going to take that hour and a half for that buck to get there.
Right.
But if you set up where that bedding is and it's on its way to that food plot, you have a better chance of trying to harvest that buck. If you're sitting right on that food plot, and even there, if you're sitting right on that food plot and that buck's not getting there until 5:30, but he got up at 3:30, 4 o'clock, and he started walking to you, as you get out of your stand, you're now blowing that deer out of there because he's on his way in, and you're now putting him onto the fact that you're there, and it's just another thing that's gonna hurt you.
Yeah.
The same thing goes with the mineral sites. You set up a mineral site, you set up, you could do mock scrapes. You do any kind of sites like that to help draw the deer in. Put a camera on it and figure out when those deer are coming in. The best thing that you can do is get cell cameras. Obviously, if you can only afford a camera that has an SD card and you have to go in and pull the SD card and swap it out,
so
try to do it. Do what you can, but also try to limit the amount that you're going in there, so you're not putting that human presence there and that pressure on it.
Don't go
cell cams. Yes, cell cams. You set it and forget it, and it just sends the pictures to your phone. But one of the biggest things that I'm going to kind of add to this that we didn't really have on our list, but since we're on the topic, when it comes to cell cameras, don't rely on them.
Right.
When you get that picture on that cell camera, that's in the past now.
Yep.
It's already done. It's already happened. That deer's already walked through. If you're not there when that deer walks through, it's in the past.
That's it. Right.
It's like it never happened. Obviously, you can get a couple days, couple weeks, couple months of data and get an idea of when those deer are coming through. But the best thing that you can do when it comes to cameras is use that for next year.
Sure.
You can tell. So when you set that camera up, I'm going out this weekend to set some cameras in the woods. It's going to help me for this year to get an inventory of what kind of deer I have, how many, if there's any bucks coming through, maybe try to get a pattern on them to see when they're coming through so I know when to hunt, what stand, and all that. But I'm going to be able to take all of this data from this year and apply it to next year.
Right.
So when I look at a camera and I see, hey, I got no activity on this camera in September, but mid-October comes around and this camera started lighting up when that pre-rut activity started happening. I know next year, don't sit in that stand in September.
Sure.
Because it's not gonna do anything for me. Wait until that activity heats up and then start hunting. And you can, if you get into it year by year and start collecting that data, keep it, go to Walmart and get a little notebook for 99 cents and a pencil and just start taking down some data. Just get a history built, start getting some, like, your own statistics, I guess you can say.
Right.
And get an idea, when you have multiple stand locations, it's going to help you. So that way, okay, this stand, this camera was lighting up early season. That's the stand I'm going to hunt early season. Don't go to the other stand that's going to light up in October, because you're going to put all that human presence there and blow that out. And maybe now you're not going to have that.
Yeah.
And then even there, if you have your cameras set up and you leave them up all year when you have a cell camera, one of the biggest things that you can do that's really going to help you out is when you see on that camera that you now have fawns. Those does started dropping. The gestation period for a white-tailed deer is about 200 days. So when you start seeing fawns on that camera, count back 200 days. You just found out when that buck got with that doe. So now you have an idea and you can kind of narrow down a little bit, when is the rut happening here?
Okay.
Typically, a lot of people will have like their, oh, like from this date to this date, that's when you want to be in the woods. Is that actually true? You can use the science and you can count back and you can say, this is when the rut is happening.
Right.
You can, you can pinpoint it exactly, and you can use that for your own note taking and everything, and set yourself up for success next year to know when that is happening and when you need to be in the woods for that rut activity.
Great points. Yeah. I mean, I couldn't even add on to that. I mean, you nailed that one. Yeah, I mean, I guess that kind of covers everything we were going to bring up today. We have an interview lined up for some point next weekend, so you guys will probably see this video probably Sunday. We're recording Friday night, so you'll probably see it on March 31st. And hopefully next weekend, like I said, we'll have our first interview. We have one lined up. So we'll kind of get some. I'm not going to get into it because if it doesn't happen, I don't want to ruin it. But we'll get to that. But make sure you guys, if you have anything to add, if there's anything we missed or anything you want to say we got completely wrong, feel free to comment down below. Make sure you guys are hitting the like button on the video and subscribe. We do appreciate it. We got like, I think 17 subscribers in the first video, which was awesome. We shared it out on our social media page, which now, since YouTube knows that we are not a fake account, I can actually add our links down below. So I'll have our Facebook and our Instagram down below as well. So we'd love for you guys to join in on that. And again, if there's any topics you want us to cover, or if you have any information that we can learn from, we would greatly appreciate it. But yeah, until next week, I think that's all we got. Brock, you want to close with anything?
Well, I mean, also, like you said, pay attention to the social medias as well. We're going to, there'll be other posts on there other than just these videos. Like, this weekend when I go out to put the cameras in the mineral sites and stuff out, I'm going to try to get some stuff together for that. If anyone out there is listening and wants to be a guest, if you have a topic that, you feel like you can help a new hunter or someone just starting out, if you can help me with turkey hunting, that would be fantastic. I would love to shoot my first turkey, but yeah, I mean, if I'm working on trying to get some different interviews with different people and like that to kind of ramp this up. I mean, obviously we're just starting out, but trying to build this and actually make it something. But if you have something that, you want to hop on here and say you want to help out, help us help the cause, reach out to us. Let us know.
Absolutely.
We'd love to have you on here.
And I'm working on actually getting this out on podcast channels, like Spotify and Apple Podcasts and stuff like that. So hopefully we'll have a better outreach as well. But that's going to do it for us today. Thank you guys again. And as Nate would say if he was here, it doesn't take big bucks to kill big bucks. So thank you guys again. Trickers and priests. That's a whole nother story. All right, y'all. You guys take care. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time.